All right, tonight, more than 30 high schools have in the last 3 weeks gone up in flames. Pictures and videos of students distressed have circulated on all forms of media, with the unrest spreading like wildfire. The Education Ministry granted a few days break as students and teachers claimed that the packed syllabus was a major cause of the unrest in schools. Still, the unrest continues. Parents are now grappling with fines as schools that have experienced damage to property demand to punish the students and restore the facilities. Still, again, the central question as to why students are allegedly burning down schools hasn't been explored, and the answers at best are unsatisfactory. Education CS Professor George Magoha, in his usual style, has chosen threats to address the situation. He has ordered schools to not to admit any students without clearance form from previous institutions. Let's listen to him.
Starting from 2016, ladies and gentlemen, there were 239 episodes of arson, mainly by students. In 2017, we had 62. In 2018, we had 61. 2019, we had 63. And last year, we had 7. If it does not stop, do not think you are going to force us to close schools. We are not closing any schools. If you are not studying, it is up to you. Your exams are ready in March. You will take them by the grace of God. Your fate is in your hands. Because we don't want to be told the same story that when students are in the prep room, then the dormitory caught fire. You think we have no brain? Anybody who is planning to burn the building, just remember that if you are caught, you are not going to go to any other school, definitely not a public school in this country. You will go back and ensure that your parents contribute to the rebuilding of the school that you have burnt. That is the first one. Secondly, we shall charge you, and it shall remain on your record.
Well, Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya picked up from there, calling for imprisonment to up to 60 years to suspects of arson. Well, parents are blaming teachers for not taking proper care in schools. Teachers say parents have failed in their primary job of parenting. There's a lot of blame going around. And so tonight, with all due respect, let's reframe this question with a view of finding real answers that can move us forward. Why are our schools going up in flames? My panel tonight, Kiambu High School teacher Lydia Gwere, karibu sana to the program.
Thank you so much.
This senior lecturer and education enthusiast, Dr. Wandia Njoya, karibu sana to the program. And David Aduda, consulting editor and former member of the CBC task force. I have the best panel tonight. Karibuni sana. Let's start with you, Wandia. Why are schools going up in flames? Do we have a coherent, cogent reason why schools are going up in flames?
I think there are two ways to look at it. There's the immediate reason. So that's when you look at the teachers, the buildings, the exams, the stress and living conditions of the students. There are even stories of school heads making a kill from the money that is paid for repairs. So you can talk at that level of the schools, and I think we've dwelt too much on that. Then there's the other level, the upper level, where you're talking about our children are not being told why they need to suffer and why they need to go to school. Because the things we say outside of school, like when we are talking about useless degrees and joblessness and telling people what's the point of looking for a job if,
right,
we don't realize that the kids can hear us. And so when they're in school, they're wondering, why do I have to suffer for all this? And yet you're the same people who say there's no hope. So we have to look at it at both levels, the level of the school itself and the level of the society which the school reflects. And I think that's a conversation we are not having. We are not having the conversation about what is it about society that the schools are reflecting back to us.
Right.
Because the schools are a mirror of society.
Right. Aduda, from your experience, this is not the first time having the school fires. Of course, right now it's happening in quick succession, but we've had this possibly from the 80s, 90s, and became a bit more serious. Why?
In fact, if you just look at it historically, we have had so many cases of strikes, and in between we've had so many task forces. In 1991, we had the Lawrence Sagini Task Force. In 2001, we had the Naomi Wangai Task Force. In 2006, we had the National Research Crime Center doing research on this. In 2019, there's a parliamentary committee that did this. So what are we saying? There's a lot of information about causes, factors leading to school strikes. But we have a challenge of dealing with them. I see us having two problems: inertia of action and inertia of cognition. There are things that now we know that we should deal with, but we're not dealing with them the way we should. Now we can give examples. My colleague has framed it very well one day, that we have the in-school and out-of-school factors. If you look at the in-school factors, there are things that we just say and leave them casually. What do I mean? Take one of the things we always say, that we want to have our learners dealt with through counseling. Have we asked, how is counseling done? And what do you mean by this? How many teachers in any school are assigned to counseling? Are they trained? And how many learners do they have? The per unit, the unit per teacher, per student to look at. So you realize that we talk about these things, you know, broadly, but we don't interrogate the real factors. So what am I saying? That we have all these, there's evidence. What we failed is now to move beyond evidence that is available and take action onto them. And I think that's where, as a country, we need to move into.
Okay.
Right.
Well, you are in school, you know, you're a teacher, very well experienced. What really is the problem? What is the crux of this matter? What is it we're not addressing, you know, as Wandia and David put it, from where you sit?
Like he has said, there are so many task forces that has come, and they have recommended what should be done. But the question is, has what been recommended been done? And a major issue is socialization of children, because the society is the one that brings up the character of that child right from when the child is young. What are we doing about it, such that by the time we are giving the teacher this child, what has happened? What is the character of this child? And we are finding that's a major issue. When we come to the school, like Daktari has said, we have the teachers now taking over this child. But who is this teacher? What is the teacher thinking about herself or himself? Is he motivated or is she motivated to work with children, or we are just producing results? And unfortunately, what is happening in schools is that we are just producing results. We are not guiding, we are not counseling, we are just producing results. And therefore, with children without character, because unfortunately, very many of them don't have character, there we are. And then there's another issue of drug abuse, of course, which again starts from socialization and what happened at home and what is happening at school. And there's a lot of drug abuse in schools. And children are really taking all kinds of drugs. And you can imagine, with that kind of ahead now, what can they do? They don't care whether they kill each other or even if they die themselves. They have nothing to lose.
Well, isn't this like a societal problem? When I'm hearing that we have a societal question and a problem, that out of our society we don't address it, or we're refusing to address it, or it's not part of our problems in the society. And we sort of expect, when children are in institutions, to do what we say as opposed to what we do. Is that what's happening?
That's what's happening. Basically, we have not resolved for ourselves as the adults, why do we go to school? And I just want to caution that actually, the problem goes further than independence. It goes to colonialism, because even during the colonial period, students were angry at the way the missionaries were treating them. There was a lot of labor that the students had to perform to go to class. The data is there. So this is a structural problem. It's not a question of the personalities in the school system. One of the other problems we have had with these task forces, because I've also been asking that question, how come we have task forces and nothing is coming out of it? It's more than inertia. I'm sorry to say, if you look at those reports, they're not very informative, because the people who are appointed on political basis. So I don't know what happens with these task forces. I expect that probably if you've appointed your cronies, then you get the civil servants in the office to draft something that looks acceptable, and then you pass that as a report. Next time, I encourage you to invite Hilda Oburu, who has looked at this, and she says that the teachers have no idea what is in those reports. They are never consulted when the commissions are going around. They go to the offices, but they don't talk to the teachers and the students. So even the kind of information we have is terrible, and in fact, that's how I come in as a scholar. I'm saying that even the education scholars have let us down. They are not doing the work, and to rely on commissions is ridiculous. We can't rely on government commissions because they have a political agenda that sometimes misses the real issues that are facing teachers and students.
Okay, I don't want to miss the real issue. I want to take a short break because I want to come back on to discuss that simple question of so it's like a gap between what we say in policy, education policy, vis-a-vis what is on the ground. And I've seen all your questions asking, so parents, should we blame parents? Should we blame teachers? Should we blame the students? Because there's a lot of blame going around. Who should we blame? And should we blame anyone at all first? All right, we're taking a short break. We'll be right back.
Just one capful of Dettol is enough to disinfect surfaces and protect your family and your home. Dettol, tested effective against COVID-19.
Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory, we offer free delivery within the same day? Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory, you can open an account and lipa pole pole at your convenience? Did you know at Ruiru Mabati Factory, you can get customized sizes according to your roof plan to avoid wastage? Call us now on 0111 050 700. Ruiru Mabati Factory, mali safi kwa bei poa.
To access, log into your eCitizen account, select your preferred service, fill in the details, then submit. Then you will receive a system acknowledgement of your request. An eCitizen system notification will be issued once the processing is complete. For more information, engage with us on social media pages.
Breaking news from Molfix. Let's see what they're developing right now.
Pants is just for me. It really feels very comfy.
Molfix pants with anatomic fit technology. New Molfix pants, an invention from babies for babies.
You should also try Molfix.
At home, at the office, at the farm, wherever you are, your banking team is at your fingertips. Go digital. Register for our internet banking. Visit coopbank.co.ke.
This one-stop sourcing solution has made our back-end operations more efficient. Sendy has helped us to focus on growing our business and serving our customers better.
Become smart na ujaribu Zenka 0% loans for first-time borrowers. Zenka, smart loans for smart people.
Just one capful of Dettol is enough to disinfect surfaces and protect your family and your home. Dettol, tested effective against COVID-19.
We offer free delivery countrywide and also offer the Lipa Pole Pole option. Enjoy unbeatable offers on our products: box profile from Kenya shillings 420, tile profiles from Kenya shillings 590, VH28 mat from Kenya shillings 730, stone coated at Kenya shillings 650.
Welcome to St. Paul's University 30th graduation on Friday the 19th of November. Make sure you follow the live proceedings on NTV, St. Paul's Facebook and YouTube channel.
Na wale fresh, patane January. Intake inaendelea.
TB ina tiba. Pata matibabu bila malipo katika hospitali zote za umma. Tujijali, tumalize TB. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na Wizara ya Afya na washirika wake.
A place in your heart.
Can't believe it, I'm JR's real dad. There's no question about it.
This can only mean one thing. Catherine deceived us again by showing us falsified DNA test results.
No problem, ma'am. I'll take care of it.
Good. Make sure that George Ramirez and Audrey Ledesma's son will be a perfect match no matter what happens. Is that understood?
Okay. Please forgive me, sir. I regret what I've done deeply. I was blinded by Catherine's money. But not a day goes by that I feel truly remorseful.
Oh, you're right to be remorseful. Your actions almost put a big strain on my marriage to Sean.
A place in your heart.
Ni rahisi, buy ama redeem na ushinde na furahia na Optiven.
All right, welcome back. With all due respect, our schools have been going up in flames for 3 weeks or more, and over 30 schools have so far experienced these sort of arson attacks. And the question is, schools making money out of this, business, as people are calling it? Parents are saying this is just too hefty of a price to pay. There was no way this dormitory costed 24 million. That's the question I'm seeing online. And the question is this tonight, like, surely, if it's sort of like a systemic question here, because we're aware that principals just don't run the schools. Obviously, government is involved. Minister of Education has to give some sort of this is where we are. So is it sort of, do you read some sort of collaboration between sort of Ministry of Education and the people who run the schools to say, well, because we don't have a solution to this, let's punish parents, for instance?
It's not only me who reads some collaboration, even the students do. And in fact, when you look at the testimonies of students who have come from school unrest, that's what they say. They say our parents paid so much money, some really struggled to pay. And then when we go, we find that in fact, I think it was on TV the other day, we found us at the headmaster's, the head principal's fence is going up and our conditions haven't changed. So I think we are taking children for granted. We think they can't see, but they can see what we are doing. And it doesn't add up, and when they ask questions, we refuse to answer. So,
David, to move this conversation forward and away from the problems, there's this persistent question that our syllabus and sort of the system that we've put out there is too heavy, it's too hectic. Teachers barely try to, cover it. Students are struggling to sort of make up with it. And the system is for you to just go through and pass your exams. And that has been our system for such a long time. Right. Whatever the format we choose, 844, CBC, whatever, isn't that sort of like part of this educational, because you've covered education for a long time, is this part of like an educational problem that we refuse to cover and talk around?
No, that's true. The overload in curriculum has been really a matter that is in public domain. We know that from studies, from evidence, and from practice. And currently, I have a sense that since the term has been shortened and the school calendar has been shortened, I get the sense that teachers are just flying through the curriculum. And I also get the sense that there's too much work to be done. And since at the end of it, everyone wants to get an A, there's too much pressure to achieve that. And then that creates some tension. And that's why, when the minister the other day introduced the midterm, that was meant to achieve that goal. What I'm not sure about is that since I just come in an ad hoc manner, whether it will achieve that goal. I know today the PS Early Learning sent a circular saying that they're now allowing schools to resume co-curricular activities, which is one of the ways of using pressure from learners. Well, again, it's coming too late in the day, but you hope it will be able to resolve this. But substantively, the point that you've not addressed is the curriculum, the overload, the drive for excellence, and then you also look at the infrastructure in schools and some of the policies and the pros in the schools. In view of the fact that the government started the 100% transition, which itself is a very good policy because we are dealing with access and dealing with the rights of children to access to school. Now, the converse to it was that schools should have facilities. That is not available. Many classes now have up to 70 or so children. That makes it difficult for a teacher even to cover that syllabus and get or give personalized attention to learners. Right. One of the things in education is individualized learning. Now, that is missing in this kind of context. Now, add this to the fact that funding to schools has been very shaky. The government gives capitation to school, but this hardly comes on time. Now, even if it comes, it's not as adequate to meet the requirements of schools. Then you have the leakages in the system, where the money that comes in also, some of it is never put into what it should. Now, that also creates a system where you don't have sufficient resources to provide the necessary infrastructure to be able to provide quality education learning. And because of that, children are getting stressed. And then you see this kind of tendencies.
Okay, so Mwalimu, there's all these issues that we know and we keep talking about, and we mentioned earlier on about task forces and, mention some of these things and sort of we flesh them out every once in a while. We still have children going through these systems and we're still producing, either functional adults or not in this sort of broken system, right? From where you sit, and as someone who's been, with your classroom experience, with, student experience and sitting with, administration and students as well, do you feel, from where you sit, that there is sort of like an autopilot system, that students just go through a system because we've been part of this system? So you go through a system, everyone finds sort of like the unique things, and so we just move out. And this process is essentially not supposed to be fixed.
We have the issue of children just going through the system, and that is true. And in the process, we are having just a few that are managing. A few. The rest, where are they? They are in the streets, they are in the villages, they are wherever. They are doing nothing. Because the system somehow rejected them because they were not A students, or they were not B students, or they were not C students. So actually there is a problem as far as the system is concerned, because we are producing very few students that are going on and that know what they are doing, but the rest are left doing nothing.
What's the point of education, though?
Education is important because I think that's why we are here, because we went through school. So it is important, but I think it should take care of everyone, such that if I cannot go to the university, I cannot get that A, then what am I supposed to do with myself? I think that should be addressed. What am I supposed? And I think that's where CBC is coming in to address such issues. So what else can I do? Can I be at this particular form and continue with my skills that I'm better off at, rather than continuing to become a computer scientist that's not making sense? So can I move on with where I can be?
So I mean, David is here. David, you sat in the CBC task force,
Yes, I did.
And we always have to circle back around this, because this is what sort of not just the criticism, but what we have there, that we still have the same institution, we still have the same teachers. So changing sort of like the curriculum, I mean, just walk us through, like, what was the thought process of, say, we're changing a curriculum, so we've really changed the system? Well, what was the thought process?
Now, at the heart of CBC is learners' innate abilities, that every learner has potential to excel. Does the school provide that environment? That's what CBC aspires to do, that create an environment in which a learner can exploit his or her talent. Now, the conceptualization of CBC is primarily to give every learner a chance to excel. And as Madam Anguiria said, you know, in CBC, at the senior school level, there are pathways for learners, different pathways. And these pathways are meant to enable a learner pick his or her abilities. We have things in social sciences, we have things in STEM, we have things in creative art and all that. So that somebody who is not good in mathematics should not be forced to look at mathematics when he or she can do something else and excel. Now, that is the philosophy. And as you are aware that CBC is still in grade 5 now, so it has not run full cycle. And that's why, you know, the impact. But what teachers are saying, that the learners who are in early years already showing signs of, you know, creativeness, that they are not bombarded with the usual, you know, get 100% in math, this and this.
But David, if you've seen online of parents, you know, struggling with the CBC, you know, processes, like, you know, it's become, you know, teachers assigning parents work. We've seen it, you know. So
that's something I need to comment on.
Yes, but let me go to this. The point of education, and talk me around this, changing the system, you know, so that, you know, we fix this sort of like what we think is a problem with the other system that we are facing it out.
Okay. You know what CBC is mentioned. Okay, let me just say our fundamental problem, from the way I see it, is that what we are saying is not what the system is. And we educators are not being very honest, and we don't want to look at the truth for ourselves. So now, fixing a curriculum cannot fix the problem. What we need, because actually we still don't know if all the children are going to go to school. Just because they CBC and now there are pathways, we don't know whether all children are still entering school. And we also know that there's segregation by the parents' income. So when you involve parents, then you're basically deciding which child goes ahead in the name of talent. It's the child whose parent has a degree and can help with the homework. That's really what is going to happen. But now coming to where the problem is not whether kids have pathways. The problem is what happens when they get out. Nick Mwenda is already having problems because of what he has done to football. So even if you tell children, oh, you can become a footballer, where? And yet the FKF chair is going to be saying there's no talent, even if Ronaldo comes here, nothing is going to happen.
Right.
Artists are struggling for income. So you're telling people, oh, you'll become an artist. Where are they going? So we need to fix the outside. We need to open the arts. We need to open sports. KRA needs to stop following us on social media and surveilling us, so that even if you tell children go into this pathway, they are not thinking to where. Because I think we are not understanding that children are more perceptive than we think they are. We are telling them one thing, but they look at their relatives, their older cousins, their fathers struggling, and they're seeing something else. I think we need to be honest about education and just face the truth that what we are saying is not, it doesn't fit in reality.
It doesn't compete with reality. So we can't essentially then fix education sort of like as an island. Or is that true? That we
certainly education, you know, plays in a context, economic, social, political, and all these things. So these really come into play, and that's why we talk of the in-school factors and out-of-school factors. When talks of access, for example, you may have schools, but learners, because of other conditions, may not go to school. So even if you have the facility, they may not enjoy. So there are also those issues that are outside the learning system. And that's why we talk of collaboration and partnerships in education, so that parents, communities, and various stakeholders come into the play to play their role in one way or the other. Even if it means just giving moral or spiritual support, that's good enough. Another stakeholder can do something. But school alone cannot fix all these things. That's the fact.
Well, just a quick one before I take the next break. One of the comments came from, I think the Principals Association like last week was that parents are not doing their work. That children at home are watching Netflix and playing video games, and you've left all this work essentially for teachers. What's your comment on that?
To some extent it is true. Because what we are having in school is a lot of issues from home. And like the other day I was discussing with my form twos, and the issue is like we are being allowed to do what we want.
At home?
Yes, at home.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can watch, I can be with my phone, I can watch TV, I can do what I want. And then when I come back to school, now I am missing home. Of course, education is not interesting. Home is more interesting, where I have everything that I need. And therefore, that is one of the reasons why children will prefer being at home rather than being at school. We're also having some parents that are also overindulgence. A child wants something and they give. They want something and they give. Then you come to school and we are telling you no. And that's why they're hitting back at us.
So what should happen in a classic world? What should happen?
The teachers and the parents should work together, in the sense that actually the teachers, I don't know whether they should teach the parents on how to go about it, or it's because the parents are a bit ignorant on how to go about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take a short break. When I come back, when they will tell us in a classic world what should happen.
Classic world.
In this maze of world where we are, with all due respect, we're taking a short break.
Naitwa David Karaoke na run Red Petal Florists, yenye ni gifting shop. Tunadeliver maua na gifts all across the country. Nimeown hii game by make sure it's very simple for you ukitaka kugift. Tuna make sure it's the easiest thing una order, tuna deliver. In the next few years nataka expand, nikaribie customers wetu huko mashinani, kuena branches kadhaa in major towns. But most importantly, just start, keep at it, endelea kuwa patient. Mwishowe lazima itajipa.
Hunter's Choice. Own your game.
For a better tomorrow, don't forget to do the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate every night.
In the real world, when you find something worthwhile, something you love, something that drives you, keep going, man.
So be ready for when your time comes.
Be smart, be patient.
Only Bet Power has no minimum stake, letting you bet small to win big.
This advertisement is brought to you by BetPower.
Black is not dark, it's bright. Black is bold. Black is every color all together. My thing, your thing, our thing mixed together. Black shines brightest.
A place in your heart.
Can't believe it, I'm JR's real dad. There's no question about it.
This can only mean one thing. Catherine deceived us again by showing us falsified DNA test results.
No problem, ma'am. I'll take care of it.
Good. Make sure that George Ramirez and Audrey Ledesma's son will be a perfect match no matter what happens. Is that understood?
Okay. Please forgive me, sir. I regret what I've done deeply. I was blinded by Catherine's money. But not a day goes by that I feel truly remorseful.
Oh, you're right to be remorseful. Your actions almost put a big strain on my marriage to Sean.
A place in your heart.
Ni rahisi, buy ama redeem na ushinde na furahia na Optiven.
Who wants to answer? Mary?
Mary has a toothache.
Oh, I see. And who knows why?
Because her tooth is too big.
No, it might be a hole in her tooth called a cavity. That's why I brush twice a day using Colgate.
Imagine this is your tooth and these are food acids that cause cavities. Colgate with calcium and fluoride helps prevent cavities.
Who protects our teeth?
Colgate! For maximum cavity protection. Introducing Colgate's double action charcoal toothbrush with charcoal infused bristles.
Here's a toast kutoka Hunter's Choice. Kwa hii life, lazima uweke effort bro. Through the late nights and heated moments. Ikikam kwa the game of life, Chief, you just have to own it. Hunter's Choice. Own your game.
All right, welcome back. You're watching With All Due Respect. I want to start from the comments and a comment from a student. I know it's a student because I have 0 followers with the ban account. And he or she says, the lady in black, Dr. Wandia, is intelligent. She reasons like a student. I like the way she argues her point. Now, when they have to come, I'd have to come to you because now you have bonga points from hopefully high school. The thing is this, Mwalimu here left us with, you know, the conundrum, the problem of at home, and parents, you know, leave their children to be children at home, if you like, you know, play video games, you know, there's no, you know, if you want this, take it, and that sort of thing. Teachers are raising a red flag and say that's a massive problem because when they come to school, there has to be structures, you know, there has to be rules and regulations. In a perfect world, how would that look like?
All right, structures have to come from the village. They can't only come from the parents. So, like if you're talking about city parents, there need to be play courts where they can practice basketball or whatever they want to play. There need to be fields. There need to be bike paths. There need to be social centers where they can go and be creative. Those are the things that, especially from around 10 upwards, you can't keep kids at home doing nothing. So the structure has to be provided by the society. If our rich people are grabbing land, which should be playgrounds and public spaces, where are the kids going to, where are they going to
play?
To play.
Yeah.
If we have no libraries where kids can go and read for leisure rather than only for school, really, what do we want? I mean, I'm sorry, but we are preaching water and drinking wine. The things we are expecting kids to do, we have not provided the facilities for them to do it. And when I raise these issues, people say that's not a solution. But actually, it is a solution. Give the children things to do, and those things must be outside the house. They cannot be just staying at home, because if they are staying at home, then they have no choice but to watch the video games. And parents who are listening, you need to be political and start asking, why is the playground grabbed? Why do we have no facilities? We are voting next year. Are you going to ask those questions? Those are the questions we, the adults, and I think that's the problem. We're not being the adults here. We're expecting kids to self-raise as if they are baking powder. No, it's us to demand the kind of society we want for kids to grow up the way we want. But we can't just issue instructions and hope that it works.
We can't self-raise to children like baking powder. Mwengi on Twitter says, why have we never charged a single principal with negligence of duty? We need to audit the principals. This is the time to call out the corrupt. David, why is that?
Yeah, to an extent, there are ways in which principals are accountable and need to be put to account for what they do. But I always take the view that sometimes parents or people out want principals to solve all their problems. And why am I saying this? I've sat in school committees, and I've seen school finances, and I've sat in a committee where everything was done overboard and could get external auditors to come and check what goes on there. Now, if you look at the fees that some schools charge, some really are outrageous, but some, the money that they get is not adequate. So it is not just a question of every time there's a problem, it is a principal. No. Principal will be culpable, but not all the times. Now, we've had cases in which a parent is called to school because a kid was found with alcohol in the dormitory. How it came to the dormitory is another matter. But once the kid is, when the parent comes in, the first question the parent asks the committee is, what's the problem with my kid taking a tot? Now, in that case, do you then still blame the parent? So this is not a question of just the parent or of the principal. Is the principal, is the teacher, is the parent, and society at large. And when it comes to society, look at it. In the last 2 years, in every corner of this city or everywhere, there are liquor shops. I think the liquor shop has become the first thriving business. Now, who are taking, why is that thriving? You've not seen bookshops thriving when people were under COVID. What does that tell you? So if the only source of entertainment that's available is from the liquor shop, not the bookshop, then you can see there's also a problem that is far outside the school environment.
All right. And Njoroge is advancing a new point of view. I have with this already. It's like we've spared the road and we've spoiled the children, he says. Parents, teachers, and students have been part of this mess. The question of, sort of capital punishment keeps coming up all over again every time, and it's gotten advanced that, where for the parents and for people who are in a bit advanced, is like, and C.S. Mago himself says that because I was beaten, I was given 6 for the best, then I turned out to be whoever I turned out to be. What are your views, Malibu, just from your experience? Does beating up, physical violence solve problems?
No, it doesn't solve problems. Actually, for those of us who went through school that particular time that people used to be beaten, it was, school was not interesting. Actually, we were in school because of the motivation of education is going to give me a job and I'm going to be a little bit better, which is different from these ones. These ones have no motivation to be in school. For what for? So when we come to physical or corporal punishment, and especially with adolescent, it is not a solution. There are very many other ways of punishing a child without corporal punishment. So it's not the best way to go.
Right.
But there are other alternatives.
We keep hearing this all the time, and you've spoken about this, you've mentioned about this. The question of corporal punishment, it keeps coming a bit on the Twitter feeds, like, why are teachers not allowed to beat up the children? Why can't I beat up my child? Why can't we just do that? And quote unquote, it worked in the past.
It did not work. Look at us. I mean, when we look at how messed up Kenya is, can we say that corporal punishment worked? It didn't work. It's not going to work. We cannot replace our failure to reason, our failure to think, and our failure to be courageous in taking political decisions about our schooling system, about our land, about our values. We can't cover that up with violence. I think the people who are asking for corporal punishment, sorry to say, are cowards. They want a quick fix to a problem that takes time. Let me just even tell Kenyans, and I hope they're hearing me.
There, that's your camera. Go for
it.
Go for it.
There are two issues here. We can either decide we want blame, culprits, and solutions and look at this problem like engineering, or we can look at society as human and see it as sick. When people are sick, you don't ask for solutions. You take tests, you diagnose, you work this drug. If it doesn't work, you take more tests to find out what is happening, and then you tell the person to rest. There are so many decisions that you make for the person to get better. We need to treat the school system that way. Diagnose, find different solutions, and make them work all round. It has to work with the teachers, the Ministry of Education. TSC needs to stop harassing teachers. Education experts need to listen to us. The politicians are misbehaving and sending a bad example to children. Private sector has to stop saying education is useless. There are so many things that we need to do for children to go to school and feel I am at the right place, this is a good place to be. We are singing different songs outside the school and expecting the school to function. I think we are being cowardly and irresponsible as adults, and we need to first look at what is wrong with what we are doing instead of always blaming the children. The children are hearing what we are saying. And so many times I tell Kenyans that and they say, I'm threatening them. They can hear us. They are even sending you tweets.
Yes,
so
yes,
they
yes,
can hear us. We are not being serious.
David, the question of how our politicians behave there, and COVID, for instance, we have MOH rules that talked about gathering and, you know, what we need to do. But our politicians from day one disregarded that, you know, and they moved on like nothing has happened. And we start blaming everyone else, you know, in Kisumu, the national, you know, event there. 2 weeks later, the spike in Kisumu went up. People died.
Well, you know, politicians are a completely different breed of people, because in one breath they tell you that when I come to power, I'll fix the education system. But in the second breath, they do everything that contradicts everything that is schooling, anything that's morality, anything that is societal. And why do I say this? My sister here made allusion to the fact that we don't have playing grounds for children. Who have grabbed these ones? Now, when we talk about education and education for what? One of the things which is a utilitarian view of looking at education is that after education, you need to have a steady job or a steady means of income. Now, if the economy has fallen because we've mismanaged that economy, then there's no hope for the children. Now that becomes a challenge. And that's why politics becomes a very, very toxic mix in this conversation you're having. And that's why it is important that in terms of really political selection, problem is that you look at the terrain, you don't know who to pick because all of them are the same.
Yeah.
It's like they were chiseled from the same tree. All of the same, you don't see hope. But that is not the that is not to make us despair, because we have a generation to bring up. And to bring up this generation, my take is that still we have to fix education, because education contributes significantly to creation of an orderly and a civilized society. Yeah.
Okay. I start running down, and one that doesn't like this when I ask for solutions. So let me move forward. Like, their parents are watching tonight, and there is this massive confusion, and perhaps we've lost jobs. You know, COVID happened. We've lost people. There's a lot of hopelessness, not just, you know, away from the structural problems this country has. COVID really was an out of the ordinary situation for all of us. And for those who are watching tonight, asking, look, I have children, I don't know what to do. Where do I start? You know, because we have spoken about all these things that are wrong. But Mwalimu, with your 37 years of experience. 34. Where do I start as a parent to start correcting this, you know, if I can, from my own sort of community as we build structures moving forward?
By the way, even when we are blaming everything else for the school fires, there is also the issue of stress. And the children have gone through a lot of stress, especially during the COVID period, because of what was happening at home. And it is such a major issue. And I've gone to very many schools, and I did a lot of psychosocial support to students, and they were all talking about separation, divorce, quarrels and fights at home, and that has really affected children. And the effects of that now is what we are seeing, because there is a lot of stress in school, and children are really stressed. And the parents need to understand that whatever is happening at home is affecting the child. Some of them don't seem to understand that. Some understand, but I think it's like, I do not know what to do. Because there is a lot of trauma that children are going through at home. Yeah. And of course, they will get affected. And if we can do something about it at home, as much as possible, if we can open channels of communication, because some children are just banning schools because, like, there's a girl who attempted to ban a school because she was left when she finished class 8, and she was left by a stepfather. And she was very mad with the mother because it's like, my mother never told me this is my stepfather. I would have been a little bit, you see, those are things that we can avoid. And we need to open channels of communication. We need to tell children the truth. Some of them, they're asking, who is my dad, who is my mom? And then they are told, aligongwa na tinga. And that is not the truth. And you know, when you give that story and the child realizes this is the truth, they are settled. So we need to open up and to tell children the truth, let them know this is exactly what happened, and we reduce a lot of stress. If separation has taken place, and you know, you cannot force two people to live together. Absolutely. If they don't want to live together. Yeah. Can we bring the children on board and discuss it? This is what has happened, and this is what is going to happen. So the children feel, my father has told me this, my mother has told me this, at least my school fees is going to be paid, I have somewhere to live. But it's like a hide and seek game that we are playing with the children. And like what Dia is saying, these children, they know what is happening, but we are still covering it up. Yes.
And yeah. This, for those who are watching and excuse the confusion, you know, I don't know what to do, you know, and I'm here. Broken homes, I don't know, economic problems, you know, things have happened to me, but I still think I need to do something. What would you tell these kind of people tonight?
Okay, the very basic solution, stories. Because kids want to know why. They want to know, how did we get here? We need to tell them. Okay, so there's stories which are just the fictional stories. Get them to read stories, to listen to storytellers, and then also tell them, ask your uncles, ask your grandmothers, what were you doing when you were my age? Where were you? Those are very interesting stories, because the kids can then hear things like, you know, we didn't have cell phones. In our days, you couldn't call anyone outside Nairobi without going through the operator. You have to dial 0. These are interesting stories which kids would love to hear. We need to tell them and there are so many adults who have stories to tell, the ones who are retiring, send them there and let them be told those stories. So one is stories, because stories help children make connections between different events, and it makes people less confused. So get them to enjoy the arts, enjoy storytelling, hear their history as a family, do that. On the social level, we need to talk about social trauma, because the trauma is not just individual. The parents who are doing these things to children, the adults who are doing these things to children are also traumatized.
Yes.
There is police violence, there's a history of colonialism which we have not resolved, there's violence at the workplace, there's harassment. You know, Kenya is like a walking trauma. And I think we've never dealt with what was revealed in the Truth and the
Justice.
TJRC.
Yeah.
That is what is coming out through the adults onto the kids. And so we are spreading our trauma to the children. So I think Kenya needs to be honest. We need to talk about the traumas we have gone through so that we can have a national healing. And then we don't have to brutalize our kids and run away from the truth.
For you?
Yes, one of the things that I still think we need to look at is really the conditions obtaining in schools, because we are dealing with school fires, and we've seen, for example, congestion in hostels. As a country, if you want our children to continue living in schools, then we have to deal with that. If you want to say that we want to minimize boarding institutions and create day schools, again, we have to ask ourselves, what do we want to do? And what does that also mean to national unity and diversity? Now, the second thing that I think we need to do in terms of the in-school factors is there are policies, for example, that have curtailed recruitment of teachers, and is because of the economy. But in a context in which we are having a pipeline pushing to have more children in school, the same government also has to deal with the supply side, ensure that there are enough teachers to take care of these children. And there are enough facilities, because it is not fair to have one teacher with 70 children in class. You don't even have a place to walk around and see what they're doing. So if they are, joking at the back, you can't even walk and see what they're doing. Even if they're planning something, you'd be able to do that. So I think we need to match the policies with funding, match policies with appropriate action, so that it's just not just one policy and we leave it at that. Because there is, the counter, it becomes counterintuitive, which is what we're now seeing now. Right.
Okay. So one final question as I wind this down. I like finishing this program early so that people can sleep, and children are watching, so I need them to sleep as well. There's this value system that, and as we go to the elections, there's things that we say in political circles, there's clips that we put out, there's things that we say about other communities, people that don't look like us or they don't share the same religion with, that we sort of agree it's a thing that it passes as good banter, and we see that so much on social media. And the question is, as we talk about this fixing society and what's going to happen in this election, and it's happening already, is this then sort of lives a life of its own in other spaces? Now we're seeing them on TikTok as well, where now it's younger people now reproducing the same thing that we've done over this sort of years. Mwalimu, I want you to go first, and to sort of politicians and people who are in this space. We can't change them, but how do we start looking at what we do in this election and this time, from family to what we do with politics, to start saying, can we reflect differently?
We know with the politicians, there's what they want to achieve, and they'll do what they want to get what they want. But in the process, we are also destroying, including our children, because there is a lot of issues that are coming in terms of tribalism and the like. And that's what we are teaching children. And it is actually affecting schools as well, because when it comes to during the time of elections, that issue of tribalism also comes in schools. In fact, even right now, there is, I'm moving my child from this school. Can you get for me a school in Nairobi? Can you get for me a school in Kiambu? Because my child is in this school where, and so it is, you see, and by the time that child is being moved, of course, there is a reason why, and the children understand that. So I would really appeal to Kenyans, because we are all in it, whether we are politicians or not. We need to let the children know we are one, and behave the same way. It might be difficult.
Even when you're not.
Sometimes, yeah. It might be difficult to think of ourselves as Kenyans because it affects children. And you know, there are some children that cannot be in a certain school in certain parts of the country. Because of that, I belong to this community, and so on, which is very bad. So I think we need to think, because I teach history, and we teach about national unity, and we teach about ethnicity and the like, but what we are teaching and what we are seeing are two different things.
David?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
You know, what Madama said here is interesting because in the 70s and 80s, people would study in any part of the country without any inhibition.
Yes.
Now, that is no longer tenable. It has even become bad that even at the level of universities, you have universities, now village universities, that the VC, the chancellor have to come from one community, one village. Is a serious problem. But substantively, the CBC that we discussed briefly here makes some commitments to certain things. One, value-based education. Two, community service learning. Three, parental engagement. Now, what are these trying to do? The intention is to draw us back to where we fell off the racks. Because value-based education is not anything new. If you read all our education plans since 1964, value is part and parcel of it, but we've never inculcated in the system.
Right.
Now, CBC is trying to come back to it, but now what you're saying, the challenge you brought here is the challenge that you have to confront, because the values that you may teach learners in school is different than the values they're going to get out there. So that disconnect is a challenge for every Kenyan to deal with, and that's why we'll go back to politicians. And I think, you know, in 2017, Nation here, we had a 10-point agenda of what we wanted politicians to deal with. I think this time to go back to that. And one of them is education, and not just education for the sake of it, but education for human creation and human building.
Wendy loves CBC, so I'm going to let her have, you know, the final go at this.
Yes.
and as you wind down, you know, your thoughts as well.
Yes.
And the question one is, you know, for a minute or so, still, our politicians will do what they want to do. Our society is still broken. We still are not doing right in many standards, but still have to live. Please.
Okay, let me start by telling the politicians, shame on the whole lot of you. You are embarrassing. You are destroying this country. We are tired of talking to you and you're not listening to us. Let me start there. And I think parents need to say the same thing. You know, why are we putting our TVs on and politicians are spewing nonsense and our children are listening? At least the very least we should say is our children are listening. So can they behave? Then the second thing I want to say is that there's a saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You can have all the good intentions you want, but if your actions are saying something else, you're not going to have the values you're teaching. Values is not a curriculum problem, it's a system problem. The people in charge of education refused to listen to us. They refused to have dialogue. And then they were saying, oh, you know, we have this curriculum where children can ask questions. But they didn't answer our questions. So I don't know what values these are that are being taught in a curriculum designed by people who didn't answer our questions. So the bureaucrats in Jogoo House are doing one thing, but the way they are treating us, and especially the teachers, TSC is not treating teachers well. And we cannot have stressed teachers taking care of children. So actually, this next time you call me, I want to talk about media, government, politicians, and the church. Because those are the people who are spreading these values that are contradicting what we say we want in the classroom. That's where the problem is. So I hope next time if I come that we are going to talk about that.
Absolutely. On this program, as you know, we have an open policy. So yes, next time, media, government and politics. Mwalimu Lydia Gure, thank you very much. All your history students say hi to you. You've done a great job. And thank you very much. Please come again and again. David Oda, consulting editor, you know, vault of knowledge for us here. Thank you very much. And of course, Dr. Wendy, and thank you very much for your straight talk. please have a go at me again on social media.
Thank you.
With all due respect, that's it for tonight. We do this every Tuesday on this station. Do it again next week, next time, same time. My name is James Smart. Please have a lovely night, and let's continue this conversation on social media.
This is NTV.